Over 19,000 individual votes casted. And tonight you will find out who are the 2015 VMM Driver of the Year award winners. I am your host, TJ Ingerson. Joining me tonight, VtMotorMag.com editor Brandon Paul. Brandon, how are you tonight?
I'm doing good, TJ. Appreciate you having me join you for this show. And this is a great time of the year where we kind of have a little bit of time to relax, but also recognize some of the drivers that really got it done on the racetrack this year, especially in your region over in the Vermont, upstate New York area. So really looking forward to it.
Absolutely. And it was quite the year in our coverage region, which includes Airborne Park Speedway in Plattsburgh, New York, Barrett Speedway in Bradford, Vermont, Devil's Bowl Speedway in West Haven, New Hampshire, and Thunder Road International Speed Bowl in Barrie, Vermont, and then our primary tour focus, the American Canadian Tour, sprint cars in New England, and we sprinkle in Pro All-Star Series Super Late Models, Granite State Pro Stocks, and Valente Modified Racing Series when we can. Ricky St. Clair, our airborne representative, is actually working his full-time job tonight, so he's unable to be with us. So Brandon agreed to step in and help us out tonight, and well, let's get right off, shall we?
We should. Let's do this.
There we go. Airborne Park Speedway Driver of the Year. 10 drivers nominated, and finishing third with 12.09% of the vote was the 2015 Sportsman Modified Champion, Nick Haywood. His fourth straight Sportsman Modified title, his second straight NASCAR Whelen All-American Series Track Championship for the driver from Plattsburgh, New York.
Number 2 in the Airborne Park Speedway category for the 2015 Vermont Motorsports Magazine Award is Bucko Branham, 12.78% of the votes this year. Again, over 19,000 votes casted on Vermont Motorsports Magazine. Branham, 7th place in the Sportsman Modified division at Airborne Park this year. Former limited late model champion. This was his first year in the Sportsman Modified division, and a pretty good year for a rookie season.
Absolutely. And the top vote getter with 34% of the vote, a multi-race winner this season in the Sportsman Modified division, his first full year in the Sportsman Modified division, a former 2-time 358 Modified champion, and that is the late Leon Gagno, the winner of the Airborne Park Speedway Driver of the Year.
Definitely good to see Leon on the list, and definitely a fan favorite there, receiving 34% of the vote. A good way to remember a driver that really left a lot with the short track racing world. Absolutely,
and he kind of had a comeback year, so to speak, for the first couple years at Airborne. After that championship in 2005, he kind of became I'm not saying also ran, but a mid-pack car. Wasn't part of the Martin Waugh, the Patrick Dupree battle, and with the Sportsman Modified going full-time and having run that type of car for a couple seasons at Devil's Bowl Speedway, really came on strong with a third-place point finish this year. And like you said, a great way by the fans to remember the late Leon Gagno at Airborne Park Speedway by voting him the Airborne Park Speedway Driver of the Year.
Yeah, and to just us on that note with Leon Gagno, he was up against some tough competition. When you look at the drivers that were competing this year at Airborne Park Speedway, you have Bucko Branham, who we mentioned previously, who finished second in the category, Jason Durgan, and of course the champion this year, Nick Haywood. So a lot of stiff competition now, with it being a NASCAR home track last season, NASCAR Whelen All-American Series, and he put up some good stats last season.
Absolutely, and adding on to your stiff competition list, he had 2 4-cylinder drivers that each broke 5 wins, with Chris Clark with 6 wins and Chris LeVere with 6 wins. 2 very competitive drivers in the the mini modified class that really put on a show all year, and then you have the great Renegades over at Airborne all season long that that put on great racing. And this year we had Sean Duquette nominated, and Robert Gordon and Josh Terry and Richie Turner, 4 drivers out of the Renegade division.
Definitely, yeah. That's a strong class there. The Renegade division, as well as the mini modifieds there with Chris LeVere. Airborne really seemed to the competition there seemed to pick it up this season. I know when I went there a few times and heard about it and read about it on Vermont Motorsports Magazine. Really think the competition took it up a notch.
Absolutely, it did. And Ricky wrote about it all year long, and it's why I think, you look at the championship battles. Nick Haywood only won 2 races, but did it very consistently, and it allowed a lot of guys, other guys, to jump in and try to battle for a championship and try to win a championship with race wins. And you had that with Jason Durgan with 4 wins, Buck O'Brien with 4 wins, and Leon Gagne taking down 2 wins himself.
Yeah, and I think when you look at that and you look at the I guess you could say, and how many different winners a racetrack has, I think that goes to show when you have a strong division. You look at some of the divisions down south, and you maybe see a guy like Lee Pulliam, and no offense to Pulliam, he obviously has he's one of the better short track drivers in the country, but when he goes out there, I mean, he wins nearly every race down there that he competes in, and you just don't see that division like the modifieds at Airborne.
Absolutely. And moving on now with the Bear Ridge Speedway Driver of the Year, receiving 16.09% of the vote, is the Sportsman Modified runner-up and the USAC Dirt Midget Association 4th place finisher. Also collected 2 sprint cars on New England wins this year on the Bear Ridge Dirt Track, is Kevin Chafee.
And second place, Adam Pearson, 16.52% of the vote. This was probably one of the closest categories, I guess you could say, this year for you, TJ. As I'm looking at the list here, 16.52% for Pearson, 16.09% for Chafee. And Pearson, obviously the Sportsman Modified champion and USAC Dirt Midget champion at Bear Ridge Speedway, now a 4-time Sportsman Modified champion. I know in my limited visits to Bear Ridge, which is honestly one of my favorite tracks to just go and kind of kick back and watch a night of dirt racing, because we don't get that opportunity a lot up here in the Northeast. But when I do go there, it's Adam Pearson is always a guy that you have your eye on.
Absolutely. And kind of coincidentally, he's beat out by one of his closest friends with 16.96% of the vote. Merely just a couple of votes separated these two competitors. He won the John Port Memorial Race back in August at Bear Ridge Speedway. He is a 5-time Sportsman Coupe champion, his first championship since 1997, and quite, a storybook. Came back from a near-fatal heart attack while driving in 2013, the 2015 Bear Ridge Speedway Driver of the Year, the Sportsman Coupe champion, for Bob Shepard.
That really is an awesome story there. I mean, coming back from a nearly fatal heart attack there in 2013 to becoming a champion here in 2015. And you mentioned the Sportsman Coupes. I remember the first time I ever went to Bear Ridge Speedway. I was talking with people there and asked them, well, what is your premier division? Because you kind of look at the Sportsman Modifieds and maybe think that's a premier division. And everybody says there isn't a premier division. There's 2 premier divisions with the Sportsman Modifieds and the Sportsman Coupes, both putting on a good show, both getting great car counts. And obviously that shows that there is 2 with Bob Shepard, a Sportsman Coupe driver, taking home the first place this year.
Absolutely. He ran Sportsman Modified again last year. Bob Shepard did drop back down to the Coupes, and you could see the world of difference, how much more comfortable he was, just from an onlooker standpoint, and it showed because he was that much more competitive on the racetrack, and picked up 2 wins, one including the John Port Memorial. He also collected 10 top 5s and 17 top 10 finishes in 21 starts. A very consistent year for Bob Shepard, and definitely a good winner for the Bear Ridge Speedway Driver of the Year. And then you touched on it with Adam Pearson, 2 championships this year in the Sportsman Modified division and the USAC Dirt Midget Association. His first Sportsman Modified Championship since 2012. Back-to-back USAC Dirt Midget Association Championships. Very, very dominant in the midget was Adam Pearson with 7 wins and 12 starts. And just equally as good in the modified with 5 wins and 22 starts. He had 12 wins overall. And he went toe-to-toe all year long in that Sportsman Modified class with Kevin Chafee, who finished third in the Driver of the Year. Barrett Speedway Driver of the Year vote. Just an outstanding year from the top of the line for Barrett Speedway.
Oh, certainly. You mentioned Shepard, you mentioned Pearson, and you mentioned Kevin Chafee. We'll just go through the other list of nominees who also received votes. You have Brian, Sportsman Coupe, 7th place driver, 4 wins, 6 top 5s, and 21 starts. A great year for him. You also have James Fadden, the 2015 Limited Late Model champion with 6 wins and 21 starts. Jordan Forenwalt, 3rd place in the Sportsman Modifieds. Earl Maxham, 11th place in the Sportsman Coupes with 4 wins and 18 starts. So he missed a few races to victory lane on 4 different occasions. Under division runner-up with 8 wins. Very impressive season there for Ryan. Justin Severance, the 4-cylinder champion, 21 starts, 4 wins, 20 5. So he didn't finish outside of the top 5 all season long. So although he didn't finish in the top 3 here tonight, definitely nothing to be ashamed of for him. And then, of course, you have Shepard and Josh Sun, the Sportsman Modified 5th place and Midget 2nd place driver.
Yeah, you talk about Justin Severance. A great year for a first-time full season competitor at Barrett. Definitely had some veteran help with him along the way, but a very impressive season for the first year competitor in a class that is very top heavy in the 4-cylinder class at Bear Ridge with Mike Ryan, who easily could have been nominated for regular driver of the year, was 8 wins and 20 starts. James Fadden was 6 wins and 21 starts in the limited late model class. So a great year for those drivers that also received votes, but top of the line, Bob Shepard, the 2015 Barrett Speedway Driver of the Year.
What do you say we move on to Devil's Bowl Speedway?
I say let's go to the West Haven, Vermont short track, where they host both asphalt racing and dirt racing.
And 3rd place this season, a name well known maybe by a lot of people, not just in the Vermont region, but also because of his experience touring with the American Canadian Tour, and that's Bobby Therian, receiving 10.61% of 6 up a handful of wins there. Bobby Therian with 2 wins and 9 starts. So 3rd place goes to Bobby Therian.
2nd place on the list with 11.30% of the vote, the 2015 modified champion, the 4th place. He also finished 4th place on the dirt track in the Sportsman Modified, collected 5 wins on the asphalt. He was also the Yandow Spring Championship winner for the combination between Airborne Park Speedway and Devil's Bowl Speedway. That is VQ2 Vince Quinville Jr. finishing 2nd in the Devil's Bowl Speedway Driver of the Year.
Now we go moving forward to the winner, and it is a name we've already heard tonight. That is Leon Gagno, recording 37.04% of the vote, really dominating the Devil's Bowl Speedway category. He finished 4th in the modified points. Definitely had one of his strongest years of his career, if not his best year at Devil's Bowl Speedway during the Mike Bruno era. Also competed in a few dirt events held there on the dirt track at Devil's Bowl. So we talked about the season he had at Airborne, but he probably had even a better season at
looks like we may have lost Brandon there, but like Leon was saying, or excuse me, what Brandon was saying, a great year for Leon Gagno at Devil's Bowl Speedway. 5 wins at the West Haven Vermont half mile. Thanks for correcting me. Definitely his best year under the Bruno era at Devil's Bowl. Also completed on 3 races on the dirt track before his untimely passing after winning in the Vermont 200 event there at Devil's Bowl. Also won the CJ Richards Memorial 67 event. Brandon, are you back with us?
So I'm not sure what's going on with this mic, but I hope we're back.
You are.
All right, cool deal. So obviously you talked about Leon Gagno there a little bit, the winner of the 2015 Devil's Bowl Speedway Driver of the Year Award on Vermont Motorsports Magazine. And just a feel-good story here. Obviously, the big news with Gagno was his sudden passing after the victory, carrying the checkered flag. But what other way would a race car driver want to go out? I mean, he had probably arguably one of his best seasons of his career, and passed away doing what he loved, carrying a checkered flag.
Absolutely, and the news came as a shock to everybody. And like you said, there's a better storybook ending for a race car driver. You know, if you're gonna have to untimely pass, unfortunately, go out winning. It's almost you can't find the words to say what that means probably to a lot of people, knowing that, you know, Leon Gagno was able to end his racing career, but out on top. We might talk about another driver who ended his racing career out on top, but definitely a great way for the fans to memorialize Leon Gagno by naming him Devil's Bowl Speedway Driver of the Year.
Certainly, and once again, we'll take a look at some of the other drivers not finishing in the top three. Obviously, Leon Gagno coming in first, VQ2 second, and Bobby Therian finishes third, but also some other drivers with some great seasons at Devil's Bowl Speedway. Looking at Chuck Bradford, a nominee, second place in mini stock points, 7 wins and 13 starts, winning in over 50% of his starts. So an impressive season for him. We mentioned the Renegades at Airborne, but the Renegades at Devil's Bowl as well, a solid division with Robert Gordon winning in 50% of his starts, 7 wins and 14 starts.
Absolutely, and then you look at the dirt with the Sportsman Modified champion, a name very, very familiar to fans. Also won the championship at Albany Saratoga Speedway and at Lebanon Valley Speedway. That is Kenny Tremont Jr. Picked up 2 wins in the 4 dirt track races there. Finished in the top 10 3 times. You mentioned Bobby Therian earlier as a third place finisher. Ron Proctor, who had a neck and neck title fight with Vince Quinville, picking up 2 wins of his own, finishing in the top 5 14 times, just a nick behind Quinville. Quinville's 2.88 average finish with a 4.18 average finish for Ron Proctor. And we can't forget about the late model champion Josh Masterson, 4 wins and 13 starts in a very competitive late model division there at Devil's Bowl. Was very in the fight for the ACT win there and back in June. Definitely a kid who's really on the up and up, and should be doing and probably will be doing great things in late model racing for many years to come.
Definitely, I've been impressed with Masterson when I've seen him in the limited times I've been able to watch him race. I know once at Devil's Bowl, but also when he's got the invite to race at New Hampshire Motor Speedway. He's a kid who sort of takes what he has. He doesn't drive over his head, and 4 wins and 13 starts, nothing to be ashamed about there.
You mentioned Chuck Bradford as 7 wins and 13 starts. The mini stock champion, 6 wins and 14 starts for Chris LeVere. 14 top 5 finishes, 13 top 5 finishes. A great year for Chris LeVere, and it was kind of a tale of 2 seasons. No one could beat Chris LeVere earlier in the season. Then in that middle part of the season, middle of the late part, no one could beat Chuck Bradford. It was kind of a split season between the two, but Chris LeVere picking up the championship, Chuck Bradford finishing second in the championship. A great year all around for Devil's Bowl Speedway.
Now, what do you say we head over to the nation's site of excitement?
I say we head there.
All right, we'll take a look. The top 3 at Thunder Road International Speed Bowl in Barrie, Vermont. We start off with Scott Dragon, late model, 4th place in the points for the King of the Road at Thunder Road this season. Really turned in an impressive season. I went there for a few races, some of the bigger races, and he was really impressive this year. I forgot which race specifically it was, maybe the Memorial Day Classic. When he finished, it was either second or third. Really strong and sort of probably surprised a lot of people. Scott Dragon, he receives 13.83% of the votes, and he finishes third for Thunder Road. Second
with 20% of the vote. A 3-time late model champion, the first driver to do it 3 straight since Chuck Beatty, since the introduction of the late model division, the Memorial Day Classic winner, the the Black Knight from the White Mountains, excuse me, as Ken Squire would say, Derek O'Donnell with 20% of the vote.
And definitely, we'll let you guess who's the winner of this category, but I think you'll probably only need one guess if Derek O'Donnell finished second, and that is Barrie, Vermont's own Nick Sweet, 2015 King of the Road runner-up, but the Milk Bowl. I think that is one of the defining moments of Nick Sweet's career is the 2015 Milk Bowl. When you see what he did coming from behind in that final segment, defeating his chief rival in Derek O'Donnell. We all know how much Nick Sweet wanted to beat Derek O'Donnell. Although they kept their rivalry clean, anybody close to the situation knew that Nick Sweet really wanted to beat Derek O'Donnell in that race, and he did so with one of the best races of the year, in my opinion. With fans were on their feet, just cheering him on. Obviously, a fan favorite at the Barrie, Vermont Oval. Not only a Milk Bowl winner, but also the Vermont Governor's Cup and Labor Day Classic winner. So Nick Sweet takes 3 of the crown jewels at Thunder Road this season, and he is the 2015 Vermont Motorsports Magazine Thunder Road Driver of the Year.
Yeah, you talk about Nick Sweet, and Nick kind of reminds me of a driver you're very familiar with in your open wheel coverage is Matt Hirschman. You know, Matt Hirschman has the nickname Big Money Matt. Because he quote unquote shows up to the big races and wins, and that's what Nick Sweet does at Thunder Road. And I think you mentioned it with the big Milk Bowl victory. I don't think Nick Sweet wins this Driver of the Year award without that Milk Bowl victory. That was definitely a very memorable Milk Bowl, one that Nick Sweet and I think fans around will always remember that were there. And you called it one of his defining moments. I will call it his defining moment of his Thunder Road late model career. You know, everyone's heard the reports and the rumors and that Derek O'Donnell might not be back next year, moving on to bigger and better things with his life, with his racing career, potentially moving down south to further his car working career, so to speak. So I think in the back of Nick's mind, he knew this was his last chance to prove that he could do it. He could bring it to Derek O'Donnell, and he did. And it was a fight right to the end. That was probably the most vocal I've heard the Thunder Road fans in years, as they got up and cheered, and the fans for O'Donnell were cheering, and the fans for Sweet were cheering, and it was probably one of the greatest moments in recent Thunder Road history.
Oh, it was the rivalry between those two and what they each accomplished this season makes voting for this category so difficult. I was asked by someone just a few weeks ago, actually, who would you put in a category for Thunder Road? Would it be Nick Sweet or Derek O'Donnell? And it's such a tough question to answer because obviously you have O'Donnell, who for the past 3 seasons has really got the better of Nick Sweet as far as the championship goes, winning 3 straight titles. O'Donnell proved earlier this year that he can get it done in one of the longer distance races, winning the Memorial Day Classic. But then you have Sweet winning 3 of those crown jewel events with the Milk Bowl, Governor's Cup, and Labor Day Classic. So it's really hard to determine. I honestly don't know who I'd vote for between those 2 drivers because they each accomplished something very special in their own right.
Absolutely. And you look at it, you look at the battle that's been brewing for so many years, those 3 years, and it came to the head at the Milk Bowl. And like you said, who do you vote for in this situation? Do you go for the championship winner when Derek O'Donnell, or do you look at the guy who won all the big races except for one, in Nick Sweet, and probably pulled off one of the greatest Milk Bowls ever? It's definitely a tough category to look at, and it's why the vote was so close. 6.7% was the difference, and that doesn't account for a whole lot of votes when it really comes down to it. So a very tight vote for this category, especially seeing Derek O'Donnell isn't a fan favorite.
Yeah, I'm honestly, after being at Thunder Road a few times this past season and hearing the reaction from the Barrie, Vermont crowd when Derek O'Donnell was introduced, I'm surprised he was even able to tally up 20%. And that's nothing against Derek as a driver because, like I said, I think as far as determining the driver of the year at Thunder Road, it's almost too tough to call. But obviously, if you've been to Thunder Road the past 3 seasons, you can probably easily tell that Derek O'Donnell isn't exactly a fan favorite when he's up against Barrie, Vermont's own Nick Sweet.
Absolutely, and definitely not a fan favorite with another Barry kid, another vote getter, and Cody Blake, third place finisher in the late model class. Also receiving votes was Jason Corliss, who finished sixth in the late model division, collecting 2 wins of his own. The street stock champion, Jamie Davis, 2 wins, a longtime competitor of the street stock class, picking up his first championship. Stephen Donahue with the Tiger Sportsman third place finisher and his rookie year. Actually, a great second half to the season for Stephen. Really, about midway, you could see he got comfortable and arguably was probably the best driver on the racetrack at the end of the season in the Tiger Sportsman division. The Tiger Sportsman champion, Brandon Moody, also received votes, as well as Jaden Perry, the street stock second place finisher, and Jason Woodard, the Tiger Sportsman second place finisher.
So now we're done with the racetracks. We've covered Airborne Park Speedway. We've covered Bear Ridge Speedway. We've covered Devil's Bowl Speedway. And, of course, we just talked about Thunder Road. So, TJ, you tell me what's next.
We're going to go touring a little bit. We're going to go throughout the Northeast and into a little bit of Canada. And the Touring Series Driver of the Year, finishing fifth with 10.35% of the vote. The runner-up in the Sprint Cars of the New England division, Chris Donnelly, collecting 2 wins on the season and finishing fifth in the Touring Series Driver of the Year.
And just like he did on the Sprint Cars of New England circuit, Dan Duville finishes ahead of Chris Donnelly, the 2015 Sprint Cars of New England champion. He receives 13.57% of the votes to wind up finishing fourth for Touring Series Driver of the Year.
Going out with a bang in his final race of his career right now was Brian Hoare with 15.83% of the vote, a 2-time American Canadian Tour winner this season. It ran very competitively during the Thunder Road Pro All-Star Series race. Just missed out on qualifying for the Oxford 250, a race that he had probably had on his bucket list before he stepped away, but also stepped away from in a very surprising way, but did it on top by winning at Thompson Motorsports Park.
And finishing in second, just short of our eventual winner in the Touring Series category, is Kevin, receiving 15.91% of the votes. So just maybe, I don't know how many votes that would work out to, but not many more, and not many more than Hoare, and not many less than our eventual winner. But that's Kevin Chafee, the 2015 third place finisher for the Sprint Cars of New England. Recorded 2 wins on the season with an average finish of 4.14.
And the Touring Series Driver of the Year was 16.52% of the vote. He collected 5 American Canadian Tour wins this year, the most since Brian Hoare did it in 2011. The ACT Late Model Tour runner-up, Joey Polowarsik Jr., the Touring Series Driver of the Year.
An impressive year for Joey Polowarsik. Obviously, a 5-time winner on the ACT Tour, not an easy feat. And going up against another guy, the eventual champion, Wayne Hellowell Jr., as well as a guy like Brad Babb, who really had a good season, a breakout season on the American Canadian Tour. But Joey just got it done. He won a lot of races, and he won some big races. So definitely well-deserved. But I do have to say, TJ, I'm a little bit shocked that our 2015 ACT champion isn't on this list.
Absolutely. And I don't know if that's a look at, well, Wayne did it. It's hard to explain why they look that way, and when you compare it to Joey's season, Joey and Wayne were head to head all the way through the year. Wayne would win, Joey would win, Wayne would win, Joey would win, and it seemed like it was that back and forth until the very end when Joey had that misstep at Airborne with a parts failure, a shock mount failure, and basically took him out of the championship. And it is surprising that that Wayne Hellowell isn't in the top 5, and I can't explain it. Can you?
I can't. Maybe we have to talk to Bruce Bernhardt and get him to maybe push the vote a little bit more next season if he wants his draw. I really don't know the answer, because when I look at those two and I look at the 2015 season, it's sort of similar to what we talked about earlier with Thunder Road between Nick Sweet and Derek O'Donnell. Hellowell, the eventual champion, the eventual runner-up, but then you have Joey Pole winning 5 races and Hellowell only winning 4 races. So definitely those two were neck and neck all season long. They're, as far as stats go, they're neck and neck. If you look at it on paper, to not see Hellowell even crack the top 5.
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe Bruce should give out some of that Harpoon Brewery beer that they stow in their trailer sometimes.
Yeah, see, marketing genius right there.
Buy some votes. Yeah, it's I think if you look at it, Joey and Wayne were right there all the way through the season. And I think if fans take the look at Joey misstepping those last two races, Joey had a better season. If you take those last two races out, I think a lot of fans can say, well, Joey had a better season, 5 wins. But Wayne had a very good season too, and I think Wayne pointed it out. The win at Chaudière was a big turnaround for their team. And if you look at Joey's season, the win at Airborne for Joey was a big turning point for Joey. He did win the opening race he did win the opener at Oxford. Had a late race incident at Lee, came back to finish inside the top 10. But that win at Airborne, I think, really stepped up that team, really got him going, and brought it back to Wayne in the fight, and set up for a marvelous season throughout the entire season.
Definitely. So Joey Pohl, he's the winner of the Touring Series Driver of the Year here on VtMotorMag.com. Also receiving votes, fellow American-Canadian Tour driver Brad Babb of Windham, Maine, finished third in the standings with 2 wins, one at Thunder Road and one at his home track of Beech Ridge. So 2 big wins for Babb, especially that win at Thunder Road, TJ. I'm sure you remember it as well, but obviously an emotional win for Brad Babb and that entire team, driving for Joey Laquerre following the passing of little Joey. So that was a huge win and probably one of the more memorable wins on the American-Canadian Tour this past season.
Absolutely. It was the storybook moment of the American-Canadian Tour season was watching Brad at a track that I think he would even admit he didn't think he would be able to win at, and go out and win for little Joey. And then the win for him, so to speak, going back home to Beech Ridge, a track that he won the track championship at, and collecting a win that he probably needed after an incident just a couple weeks earlier at Oxford. A win for him at Beech Ridge, and if you look at Brad's season and you take out that first couple, those first 2 races where they ran into issue at Oxford and Lee, I think Brad's right there in the championship fight. Probably not at the same level, but I think he's closer than he is. And Brad received his fair share of votes in the Touring Series Driver of the Year, and definitely deserved him. He was definitely the best driver outside of Wayne and Joey this season on the American Canadian Tour.
Definitely. And continuing down through the list of other nominees and drivers to receive votes, you have Chris Donnelly. Earlier I mentioned Adam Pearson, a driver that you really watch for when you go to a track like Bear Ridge. Well, Chris Donnelly is certainly another one when he visits with the Sprint Cars of New England. Finished second place in 2015, 2 wins, 12 top 5s, an average finish of 3. So an impressive year for Donnelly. The Sprint Cars of New England champion, Dan Duville, we mentioned him, 4th place finisher. And what about Derek Griffith? I don't think enough people talk about what Derek Griffith was able to accomplish this year and how much he improved as a race car driver and how that team improved just as themselves as throughout the season. Looking back a few years, when you saw Derek Griffith on the track, you usually didn't see him up towards the front of the field. And for him to be able to come out, he had a very strong start to the season, picking up wins at Star. 4 wins in all on the season, on his way to the Granite State Pro Stock Series champion. And really, I think an impressive season. One of the more impressive when you talk about Pohl and Hellawell. I think you have to put Derek Griffith right there as far as touring goes, because he had one heck of a season.
Absolutely, he did. Absolutely, Derek Griffith had an outstanding season this year on the Granite State Pro Stock Series. For a young kid, so to speak, to come out and do what he did, beat all the veteran drivers, beat Barry Gray, beat Michael Sullivan, beat Larry Gelinas consistently week in, week out at some of the toughest racetracks that they go to. And
not only that, it's not like he just beat up on those guys, or I don't want to say beat up, but beat those guys. When there were invaders that came into the Granite State Pro Stock Series, I guess you could call them, such as a Jeremy Davis or a DJ Shaw. Derek Griffith proved that he could run with those guys, and he was strong at the Oxford 250. He didn't make the race, but he was strong in practice and had a little bit of bad luck in the heat race. But also, I mean, going to Thunder Road for the first time, he really learned a lot this season. I think moving forward, I think you can expect even more from Derek Griffith and that team as they continue to just get better.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he competed with the Granite State Pro Stock Series in the first year that they ran in 2012, and you've be able to watch the progression of him, much like American Canadian Tour fans have been able to watch the progression of Joey Polowarsek Jr. As he's been able to grow through the years to the driver he's become today. It's been the same sort of progression, and it's coincidental that they went to the same high school, but to be able to go through the same progression that they did. Derek Griffith has definitely grown in his 4 seasons with the Granite State Pro Stocks, and definitely becoming the champion was the next step for him with 4 wins on this year. He definitely didn't, quote-unquote, fluke into it. He went out and earned it this year.
Oh, certainly. And continuing on with other nominees and vote getters, we talked about Wayne Hellowell being left out of the top 5. He also received votes, just obviously not enough to finish within the top 5. And finally, the Pro All-Star Series North champion, the Maine racing legend, still getting it done, Mike Rowe. 16 starts, 3 wins, 8 top 5s. Really came with a new race team. He really started the season off on fire. I don't think anybody, including Mike Rowe, ever expected he and that team to gel so well so early on in the season, and they got it done with wins at Oxford and a win at Star. And just it's amazing to continue Mike Rowe, continue to get it done, especially for someone like me who's from Maine, who grew up at a track like Oxford Plains and Beech Ridge. To see the old guy still getting it done, it's a pretty cool story.
Absolutely, and I think you mentioned his fast start, and that probably what helped him really start off a championship season. You always hear championship drivers talk about you need to get off to a fast start. You know, Brian Hoare did it back in 2012 by winning. Back in 2011 by winning at Lee, winning at Thunder Road. Really got off to that fast start, and you saw it this year with Mike Rowe. Won at Oxford, won at Star, picked up some big wins early on in the season. Really separated himself from the competition, and then when he did have a few stumbles late in the season, it didn't hurt him. It didn't really affect him. And definitely built on a good season to pick up his first past North championship. Definitely a long-deserved one when you look at how long he's been such a figure in the Northeast and such a figure on the Pro All-Star Series.
Oh, certainly. And you mentioned that. He has the Oxford championships. He obviously has the Oxford 250 wins, Beech Ridge championships, past 300 wins. Really, when you think of Maine super late model racing, he's really done it all. He's won at Speedway 95. He's basically won anything that you can win in the state of Maine in a super late model. And that's what he was missing up until this year. So I know that we've talked about it before, and that was something that he really wanted this season. It's something that he didn't want to leave off of his resume, and he was able to accomplish that. So certainly a great feat for the Maine racing legend, Mike Rowe.
Absolutely. And one quick note about that great Sprint Cars in New England battle. You know, we just talked about fast starts. Chris Donnelly season basically turned on a slow start when he went upside down at Bear Ridge early in the season and was never really able to recover. But definitely Dan Duville had a great season, picking up 4 wins, including the very prestigious, the inaugural Green Mountain Sprint Car Championship race at Devil's Bowl Speedway, the combination series event with the ESS Empire Super Sprints, and he bested them all on that given day and picked up a big win for his racing career.
Oh, definitely. And so that's your Touring Series Driver of the Year, goes to Joey Polowarsek Jr. Well-deserved honor for Joey Pole, as he recently announced that he isn't planning on running full-time, at least with the American Canadian Tour next season, as he's actually starting a driver development program to try to bring some additional drivers into the American Canadian Tour. So good for Joey Pole, and good to see him take down the win.
Open Wheel Driver of the Year, where we combine every driver that runs in an open wheel kind of race car, type of race car, asphalt modifieds, dirt modifieds, sprint cars. If they have an open wheel, they're in this category. and with finishing fourth with 11.65% of the vote, the Bear Ridge Speedway Sportsman Modified Champion, USAC Dirt Midget Association Champion Adam Pearson finishing fourth.
And now we're at the point of the show where we're starting to see a lot of repeat names here because we're talking about drivers in the open wheel category who also race at tracks that we've already awarded winners to. And the winner of the Bear Ridge award, Bob Shepard, he finishes third in the open wheel category with 12.96% of the vote.
And it's interesting that you might see some results that are flipped, like this driver right here, with 13.74% of the vote, picking up two Sprint Cars of New England victories, along with his victories at Bear Ridge Speedway, which accounted for 5 wins in 15 top 5s at Bear Ridge Speedway in the Sportsman Modified class. That is Kevin Chafee.
And for the third time tonight, Leon Gagnon is at the top of the category as he takes home the open wheel category with an impressive 30.26% of the votes. We've seen a lot of close battles in a lot of categories, but when it comes to Leon Gagnon's name being on a list, he seems to have definitely grabbed a lot of the votes. I'm not going to see the majority, but certainly a fan favorite and accomplished a lot to earn those honors as well this past season.
Absolutely, and it wasn't a vote that, well, we're just going to memorialize him. No, he went out and he had two very good seasons at Airborne Park Speedway and Devil's Bowl Speedway, picking up 7 wins across the year, across both racetracks. Won the very big C.J. Richards Memorial 67-lap event at Devil's Bowl Speedway. Won the final 50-lap race in the Vermont 200 weekend. Like I said, 2 wins at Airborne Park Speedway, a total of 5 wins at Devil's Bowl Speedway, and also completed 3 times on the dirt. A very unique sort of driver that would race anything open wheel modified in that area. And an interesting stat I heard right after his passing from Mike Bruno, that the dirt race after his passing was the first race Leon Gagnon didn't run with Mike Bruno as race director from 2012. Then that includes 2012 to 2015 at Devil's Bowl, and then Mike Bruno's 2 years, 2014 and 2015 at Airborne Park Speedway. So Leon Gagnon, the open wheel driver of the year.
So you mentioned Gagnon, he's the winner. Kevin Chafee second, Bob Shepard third, Adam Pearson was fourth. Taking a look at some other drivers who received votes, some that who we've already talked about at some point tonight. Bucko Branham at Airborne with 4 wins, 10 top 5s, and 17 starts. Dan Duville, Sprint Cars of New England, 14 starts and 4 wins. Jason Durgan, obviously an impressive year in the Renegades at Airborne. The Modifieds at Airborne. And also Nick Haywood, Modified driver at Airborne.
Absolutely, and you talk about Ron Proctor at Devil's Bowl, picking up 2 wins of his own at Devil's Bowl Speedway, finishing second in the Modified Championship to Vince Quinville. And Quinville also picking up votes in the open wheel category with 5 wins of his own on the West Haven half mile, and also picking up 2 top 5 finishes on the dirt. And Bob Shepard, the third place finisher, with 2 wins of his own this year, including the John Poor Memorial.
So we've done the open wheel. Now I imagine we have to transfer over and sort of touch on some fender racing.
Fender racing, which people always seem to get confused by this category a little bit. We call it late model. Late model, limited late model, basically anything full fendered, 8-cylinder. It can be late models, it can be Renegades, it can be Tiger Sportsman, strictly stocks. Probably someday it'll also include some 6-cylinder type cars in it. Just basically anything more than 4 cylinders and has fenders.
That's a good way to classify it. So we'll take a look at the top 3 in the limited late model category. Finishing in third place, 15.91% of the votes. 2015 Airborne Renegade champion with 3 wins on the season. It's Richie Turner.
Finishing second with 18.09% of the vote, the 3-time Thunder Road late model champion, the Black Knight from the White Mountains, Derek O'Donnell.
And once again, no surprise, beating out Derek O'Donnell, Nick Sweet with 22% of the votes. So a bit more narrow of a gap between Sweet and O'Donnell in the late model category compared to the Thunder Road category. O'Donnell just barely missing out, 4% less than Sweet. But again, the Barrie, Vermont faithful come out and support Nick Sweet, giving him 22% of the vote in the overall late model winner.
Also collecting votes in the limited late model category was the Bear Ridge Speedway limited late model champion with 6 wins, James Fadden. Brad Babb, the ACT late model tour competitor, one of the breakout drivers on the season with 2 wins. Robert Gordon picking up 1 win, 15 starts at Airborne, and 7 wins in 14 starts in his championship season at Devil's Bowl Speedway. Wayne Hellowell Jr., 4 wins on the American Canadian Tour, and an impressive run in the Oxford 250, leading the most laps and finishing 7th. Josh Masterson with 13 starts, 4 wins in his championship season in the late models at Devil's Bowl Speedway. The Thunder Road Tiger Sportsman champion with 4 wins, Brendan Moody, along with Joey Polowarsik Jr. with 5 wins and 13 starts on the ACT Late Model Tour, and a top 5 finish in the Oxford 250. And Richie Turner, with, as we mentioned, with a 3rd place finisher, picking up 3 wins and 15 starts at Airborne Park Speedway in his championship season.
So we've talked about the open wheel. We've talked about the late model. Let's move on to the 4-cylinder driver of the year category. In this category, you have drivers from Devil's Bowl Speedway. You have drivers from Airborne Park Speedway, as well as Thunder Road and Bear Ridge Speedway. So a lot of drivers to choose from, with 4 cylinders being a popular division, really no matter where you look throughout the country, but especially in this region. And you look at the 3rd place finisher from Thunder Road Speed Bowl, the 2015 Street Stock champion with 2 wins. It's Jamie Davis, receiving 14.17% of the vote.
Finishing second with 25.39% of the vote, just being beaten by just a little bit for this 4-cylinders driver of the year. The Bear Ridge Speedway 4-cylinder champion, as well as the dirt track at Devil's Bowl Speedway mini stock runner-up, 6 wins between the 2 racetracks, is Justin Severance.
And the winner, you mentioned the close gap here, with Severance receiving 25.39%. Well, the winner of this category, 26.0%. So a very, very close battle for the 4-cylinder driver of the year. But the votes were tabulated by TJ, and Chris LeVere comes home as the winner of the 4-cylinder driver of the year. The Airborne Mini Modified champion and Devil's Bowl Mini Stock champion. You look at the stats of all these drivers on this category, and definitely some impressive stats, but you look through them and Chris LeVere sticks out because 12 overall wins. No matter where you're racing, no matter what kind of race car, no matter who it is, whatever, 12 overall wins is definitely an impressive feat.
Absolutely it is, and doing it at 2 different racetracks that run back-to-back nights. If you screw your car up on one night, it makes it very hard to get there the next night. And yes, he does have a family operation that includes his father and brother, but 12 wins in one car I believe for the most part. Also ran a couple events on the dirt. 12 wins for Chris LeVere is definitely a very, very great achievement for him, especially considering he had Chuck Bradford at Devil's Bowl right there with him, and as Chris Clark at Airborne Park Speedway with him there, who also collected votes in this category. And you mentioned Jamie Davis, the 3rd place finisher with 2 wins in his Thunder Road Championship season in the street stock class. Had a great season, his first-time champion.
And also receiving votes, Jesse Durkee, Bear Ridge competitor, 4 wins and 21 starts. Al, Thunder Road street stock driver with 2 wins and 17 starts. An impressive season for Maynard there. Winning in that division is a feat in its own. Doing it twice is even more impressive. There at Thunder Road in the street stock division. Dale O'Neill from Airborne with 2 wins and 14 starts. Jaden Perry, another one of those street stock competitors at Thunder Road. He also received votes, as well as Mike Ryan from Bear Ridge. And we mentioned Justin Severance as well from Bear Ridge was our 2nd place finisher.
Absolutely. And we talked about it earlier with Chris LeVere having Chris Clark and Chuck Bradford 1-2 at both Airborne and Devil's Bowl.
No.
Mike Ryan had Justin Severance had Mike Ryan throughout the season at Bear Ridge Speedway, and Mike Ryan picking up 8 wins and 20 starts. Wow, 20 wins would have been impressive. 8 wins and 20 starts. 8 wins is still very impressive, especially for the 4-cylinder division at Bear Ridge. that has kind of transformed over the past couple years, combining the Fast Fours and the Ridge Runner Hornets into one division, and a very competitive division that it's turned into at Bear Ridge Speedway.
Yeah, all these four-cylinder divisions are really competitive because, I mean, with the low cost involved, that's what it's all about. It's about making it affordable for all these drivers to be competitive, and you see that with the results, with some of the top drivers in each division only recording 4 wins or 2 wins. Obviously, you have some in there like Lavere, who was able to get 6 wins at each racetrack, but outside of that, really spread out as far as the wins go with all these racetracks.
Absolutely. And at Thunder Road, there wasn't a very top-heavy street stock driver, like there were at Bear Ridge, Airborne, and Devil's Bowl that had a lot of wins. So Thunder Road was very competitive, nuts, and same goes for Devil's Bowl, Airborne, and Bear Ridge, because you never knew which one was going to win any week. Four-cylinder racing is where drivers start, and it's where racing careers begin. Look at Nick Sweet. Nick Sweet won a couple street stock races in his driving career many years ago, about before I was racing. So
when you were trying to race?
Well, when I attempted to race at one time, and that's why I'm now doing this. So
we all can't be Nick Sweet or Derek O'Donnell, right?
We only wish, right?
All right, so moving on. Again, that was the four-cylinder driver of the year. Chris Lavere taking down the honors with a really impressive season at both Airborne and Devil's Bowl. Justin Severin second, and Jamie Davis, a street stock competitor at Thunder Road, was third. So let's go ahead and what do you say we move on to the breakout driver of the 2015 season?
Breakout driver of the year. 10 nominees for this award, finishing third with 14.17% of the vote, picking up 2 American Canadian Tour wins along the way, including 2 memorable wins. It was Brad Babb finishing third.
Finishing second, a driver that really definitely deserves to be in this category. Just from my short time attending Thunder Road the past 4 or 5 seasons, Kyle Pembroke, just definitely 2 wins this season. A couple years ago when I went to Thunder Road, I mean, you wouldn't even sometimes expect him to qualify for one of the bigger races, never mind win 2 50-lap late model races at one of the toughest short tracks in the country. So definitely props to Kyle Pembroke. Definitely had a breakout season. And if you also want to call this award sort of the most improved, I guess you could give that honor to Pembroke as well, because he definitely turned it around and had a great season at Thunder Road.
Absolutely, and having a very good run in the Labor Day Classic was Kyle Pembroke, but picking up the most votes in the breakout driver of the year with 24.61%. Picking up 4 wins of the year in 21 starts in the Bear Ridge Sportsman Coupe division with 6 top 5, 14 top 10s. It is Brian Chafee being named Breakout Driver of the Year.
All 3 of these drivers really certainly belong, as well as a lot of the other drivers on this list. It's really another one of those categories that it's tough to exactly pin down who you would vote for, especially me personally. If I look at the list and see some of the names on it, which we'll run down here in a little bit, but Brian Chafee with 4 wins in the Sportsman Coupe division at Bear Ridge. Once again, you talked about it briefly. A very competitive division. I mean, you see, that's not a division that you see just roll out 10 or 12 cars for a feature race. They have a lot of race cars out there, and in order to visit Victory Lane at Bear Ridge in the Sportsman Coupe division, you really have to have your game together.
Absolutely, and just a few years ago, Brian Chafee was a limited late model competitor, so he's made this jump very, very smoothly for him. And like you said, in a very competitive Sportsman Coupe division at Bear Ridge Speedway, and if you can win in a Sportsman Coupe, you can probably win in a modified at Bear Ridge. It is that competitive. The competition is that close, and when you look at the point standings, there wasn't that much spread across. One driver that we left out that could probably be in Bear Ridge Speedway Driver of the Year, in Open Wheel Driver of the Year, probably Breakout Driver of the Year, is Tom Placey, who was left off the vote. He finished second in the Bear Ridge Speedway points, and he was good as well. So a very competitive division at Bear Ridge in the Sportsman Coupe. Brian Chafee grabbing 4 wins along the way and being named Breakout Driver of the Year. And then you mentioned Kyle Pembroke, a great breakout season. If you're looking out for a breakout driver, you put Kyle Pembroke basically on the poster for it, because that's what a breakout driver is: picking up 2 wins, having great runs, and proving to everyone that your first win wasn't a fluke. That hey, you deserve to be there, and then going out and having a chance to win one of the bigger races of the year.
Oh, certainly. And, of course, Brad Babb as well, finishing third with those 2 big wins, one at Thunder Road where, as you mentioned earlier, even he probably never thought he would be able to visit Victory Lane at that racetrack, because it's just so tough to do. Every race car driver in the pit area will tell you that, whether it's Nick Sweet, Derek O'Donnell, or someone like Brad Babb who had never really done it before this year. So all 3 of those drivers are great, but if you continue looking through this list, TJ, there's some other drivers who you could definitely make a case for that belonged in this top 3 as well. First off, I want to mention Jeremy Davis. I mean, what a season that guy had, coming out of basically nowhere, competing in 14 Pro All-Star Series races, arguably one of the toughest super late model tours in the entire country, and picking up his first win up in Canada, 6 top 5 finishes. There was a point before the Oxford 250 this season where every single race that I went to, every single Pro All-Star Series race that I went to, Jeremy Davis was on the podium. Steve Perry from Mainly Motorsports, who I know you've joined and you're considered their Vermont expert or whatever he likes to call you, but he calls Jeremy Davis Mr. Podium or Podium or something like that, because he was just so strong and he was consistent, and he put himself in a position midway through the season to be considered a favorite for the Oxford 250. I mean, let's just think back a year and think if anybody would have ever had Jeremy Davis as a possible favorite for the Oxford 250. So when you think of breakout, that's exactly what Jeremy Davis did on the Pro All-Star Series, as well as with the Granite State Pro Stock Series, picking up 2 wins and 6 starts.
Absolutely. You look at, if you ever take a walk down through the pass pits at any racetrack, you see double deckers with some of the top tier teams. You see very nice enclosed trailers, and then you see this team down in the corner that has a very old truck and a very old, very traveled trailer, and that's Jeremy Davis, and he is winning races on the Pro All-Star Series. Not only winning, but if he probably wouldn't have skipped those couple races earlier in the season up in Canada, probably would have been a championship contender.
Yeah, when you think Mike Rowe, the champion of the Pro All-Star Series, when you think past Mike Rowe about a driver who had a great season this year, he's one of the first that come to mind. Obviously, DJ Shaw's there, but he had the incident at the Oxford 250 with pass officials, left the racetrack, didn't compete in the race, didn't compete the rest of the year with the series, so that eliminated any chances of him winning the title. But as far as consistency goes in his limited starts, not competing full-time, he was definitely one of the more impressive, a 9.29 average finish. And that may not jump out at somebody and be like, wow, 9.29 average finish. But competing on the Pro All-Star Series where they normally have, 25, 30, 35, 34 cars or whatever they may start maximum at a racetrack, that's a pretty good feat.
Well, you also got to remember that 9.29 includes his DNF at the Oxford 250 while he was in contention for the late race win. After the pit stops had been made, he was definitely in the talk of that short list of guys with Glenn Lewis, Wayne Hellowell, Reed Lanfer. He was in that conversation, and then he had I believe it was a wheel bearing issue and took him out of the race. So that 9.29 can be deceiving, especially when you have a 26th place finish in only 14 starts. So, and like you said, Jeremy Davis, definitely a poster boy for breakout driver of the year. Another one, Jordan Formwalt from Bear Ridge Speedway with he picked up 1 win this season at Bear Ridge and was finished third in the point standings behind Kevin Chafee and Adam Pearson. Brett Gervais, the other part of that breakout driver procession at Thunder Road at the Labor Day Classic ahead against Nick Sweet. He had a great season. Didn't finish in victory lane like he did last year, but was definitely was more consistent than he was last year, and definitely a very, very good driver to be nominated for breakout driver of the year. And we mentioned earlier Derek Griffith, the Granite State Pro Stock Series champion, put together one spectacular season with the Granite State Pro Stock Series. Scott Holcomb in his second season with the Sprint Cars in New England, his first full-time season, picking up 2 wins at Bear Ridge Speedway, and having a great year for the driver that comes from Connecticut, that for the very, very northern series of the Sprint Cars in New England, and a driver you're familiar with, a driver who has kind of been silent since joining the Pro All-Star Series, picking up 2 probably surprising wins, especially one earlier in the season at Beech Ridge Motor Speedway, and that's Brian Kruzek.
Oh, definitely. We mentioned Jeremy Davis there, but when you think about Jeremy Davis, you also think about Brian Kruzek. He was able to accomplish. And when talking about Davis, I mentioned previously how he had become a favorite for the Oxford 250. Well, another one of those guys who came out of absolutely nowhere to become one of those guys talked about as a possible Cinderella story at the Oxford 250 was Brian Kruzek. And he picked up the win, you mentioned, at Beech Ridge earlier in the year, his first career Pro All-Star Series victory. And then later, going to Oxford Plains Speedway right before the Oxford 250, the last Pro All-Star Series race before the 250, and just surprising everybody with another dominating effort. He had a heck of a season, and 2 wins, 4 top 5s, and definitely deserved to be in that category.
Absolutely, he did, and it was a category. It was a win that when he first won at Beech Ridge, I was following Speed 51's coverage. We were unable to get to 10, and I was following your coverage from there. And when you found out Brian Kruzek won, you went, really? It was one of those goes. You go, well, was it a Wreckfest? And you realize no, it wasn't. It was a pretty green to checker race, and he dominated. And then he did the same thing.
And to be fair, he should have. I don't want to say should have, but he very well could have won another race at Beech Ridge later in the season, one of the night races. I remember I was watching him up on the camera stand filming the race, and was just glued to him because he was coming up through the field. He started deep and had the fastest car there. There was no doubt about it. And I think he had moved into second with about 15 laps to go, and his engine let go. But he very well could have had 3 wins on the season, and he didn't just do it by starting on the pole and dominating. That race at Oxford, he came through the pack, and then that second race at Beech Ridge that I just referred to, he also came through the pack. So he wasn't a guy that just started on the pole and dominated. He earned everything he got this year.
Absolutely, and then picking up that win at Oxford that made him in the conversation for one of the favorites for the 250.
Certainly. So we talk about the breakout driver. We've mentioned all the tracks. We've done 4-cylinder. We've done late models. We've done open wheel. 2 categories left. First off, I think we should probably talk about the rookie driver of the year.
Absolutely, the first timers, so to speak, in their respective divisions, and a rookie class that had a lot of nominees in it, and finishing 5th place with 11.83% of the vote, picking up 5 wins in Bear Ridge limited late model competition. It is Tim Martin.
And just above him in the 4th place in the rookie class is Danny Sullivan, 12.43% of the votes, the Airborne Speedway Sportsman Modified Track Rookie of the Year.
Picking up 12.61% of the vote, Thunder Road Street Stock competitor, multi-time podium finisher in the Street Stock division this year, it is Matthew Smith.
And finishing runner-up with 15.13% of the votes, it's Airborne Speedway Sportsman Modified competitor Jamie Begor. An impressive season for him with 4 top 5s, 10 top 10s in 19 starts.
And the 2015 VMM Rookie Driver of the Year with 20.61% of the vote, picking up 3 wins in the Thunder Road Speed Bowl Tiger Sportsman division, also competing at Speedway 51, and had a very impressive run in this year's Milk Bowl, qualifying in his first ever attempt. That is Stephen Donahue, the 2015 Rookie Driver of the Year.
And I'm wondering, TJ, if we may have to put him in the category again next season. As another good year, you saw him last year make that start at the Milk Bowl in a late model, so you have to wonder if maybe something's up with him possibly getting a shot at the next division. But an impressive season, and I talked earlier how I've been to Thunder Road 6 times this past And for the bigger races, the Memorial Labor Day, Governor's Cup, Milk Bowl. And every time I was impressed with Stephen Donahue. Watching the Tiger Sportsman class, he was always one that always run up front. Just a young kid, but like Thunder Road.
Absolutely. Stephen Donahue, also competing at Speedway 51 in his Tiger, picking up a couple wins up there, and as well as competing in a few events in the late model division, and having a great season there as well. And then Jamie Begor, his first foray into open wheel competition in the Airborne Park Speedway modified division. And doing very good things in his first year. Definitely a big learning curve. I think his only open wheel experience came in a kind of a one-off random ride at the SBM 125 a few years ago with Carl Fredrickson. Went full on deep, bought a Sportsman modified this year, and finished second. Had a very decent season, like you said. Picking up 10 top 10s and 19 starts with a 9.47 average finish.
And taking a look at some of the other drivers that were nominated for the Rookie Driver of the Year category, Rich DeBow, he's the lone ACT Late Model Tour representative on the list. 12 starts, 1 top 10, an average finish of 17.67. Again, those numbers, especially with the series like ACT and PASS, can kind of be deceiving because he has some good runs in there. Obviously, with the 1 top 10 finish, I believe that came at Oxford, and he received one of the ACT 3-star awards. Maybe I'm wrong with that, but I know he did have a decent run at Oxford, and really surprised some people in his first start of the season. But Rich DeBow, he's the lone ACT representative. Chris LaForest, Thunder Road Street Stock rookie with 1 top 5 finishes and 1 top 5 finish, 10 top 10s and 17 starts. And also representing Devil's Bowl Speedway, you have Rich Lowry III picking up a win in his rookie season.
Absolutely, and you talk about Rich DeBow, and he was really the only rookie competitor. But the first race at Oxford, he came out and he had a very, very good run. He had a very good run again at a track he had never seen. A lot of people, when they go for the first time, have never seen, and that is Circuit St. Croix, Riverside Speedway up in St. Croix, Quebec. Had a very good run up there. Had a decent run going at Autodrome Chaudière. So in a season where there weren't many ACT Late Model Tour Rookie of the Years, he definitely put together a season that was definitely deserving of a Rookie of the Year award.
Certainly, and we continue looking through the list here. You have a guy like Danny Sullivan in the modified division at Airborne, 2 wins in 19 starts, and also Matthew Smith with 6 top 5 finishes and 15 starts in the Thunder Road Street Stock division.
Absolutely, and one note about Stephen Donahue, he also won the prestigious Doc Nielsen Award for the American Canadian Tour as their best rookie across both American Canadian Tour divisions, as well as Thunder Road, so a very prestigious award winner for Stephen Donahue.
TJ, I may be wrong here, but I think we're ready for the drum roll and we're ready for the big one.
We are ready for the big one. We are ready to announce the 2015 VMM Driver of the Year, and with 8.7% of the vote, finishing 5th, is Adam Pearson.
Finishing 4th, night. Another terrific season for Derek O'Donnell, possibly on his way out, as you mentioned earlier, moving on to, I don't want to say better things, but possibly some better things for he and his family in the long term. So Derek O'Donnell, he finishes 4th.
With 3rd, collecting 12.52% of the vote. The runner-up this season at Bear Ridge Speedway in the Sportsman Modified class, picking up a couple of sprint cars in New England wins as well. That is Kevin Chafee, the 3rd-place finisher and Driver of the Year.
And the votes, less than 1% difference between he and the winner of the 2015 Driver of the Year. That's Nick Haywood, 17.04%, the 2015 Airborne Park Speedway Modified Champion.
And we're down to 1. And I should have prepared to have some drums, but I don't. With 17.83% of the vote, a very close vote between this driver and Nick Haywood. He won the 2015 VMM Driver of the Year, along the way picking up his second career Milk Bowl win, his four, I believe 4 of them, Vermont Governor's Cup, a three-time Labor Day Classic back-to-back. The 2015 VMM Driver of the Year is Nick Sweet.
Nick Sweet taking home 3 different categories this year, including the granddaddy of them all. And I guess pretty similar to the way that he performed at Thunder Road this season, taking 3 of their crown jewel events with the Governor's Cup, the Labor Day Classic, and, of course, the granddaddy of them all, the Milk Bowl. So Nick Sweet, a well-deserved honor, a great season for both him, as we mentioned earlier, Derek O'Donnell as well. Nick Haywood obviously had a great season at Airborne Park Speedway, becoming their champion. A lot of great drivers on this list, and Nick Sweet, he comes home with the top honor.
Absolutely, and a definitely deserving honor. Many years you thought Nick Sweet, you think Nick Sweet is going to win Driver of the Year, but he doesn't. Nick Sweet now joins a very good list of Driver of the Year award winners, including Joey Polowarsik last year, Todd Stone in 2013, Wayne Hellewell Jr. in 2012, Kevin Chafee in 2011, 2010, I believe it was Don Miller. In 2009, it was Tom Placey. So a very stout a list he joins as VMM Driver of the Year award winners.
Yeah, I'm surprised I didn't hear Travis Ingerson on that list.
Yeah, my racing career had ended before VMM was started up.
So we'll continue. We'll take a look at the other nominees. Mentioned Nick Sweet coming home first, Haywood second, Kevin Chafee third, Derek O'Donnell fourth, and Adam Pearson fourth. But also some other drivers on this list making up the top 10. Dan Duville, the Sprint Cars of New England champion, as well as the Green Mountain Sprint Car Nationals champion. You could make a case for him to be up there a little bit further. You could make a case for all of these guys to be up to win the award, if we're being honest. But Chris LeVere, we mentioned him earlier, with 12 wins combined at Airborne at Devil's Bowl, receiving 7.74% of the votes, and he comes home 7th.
Yeah, also receiving votes was Vince Quinville Jr., grabbing 5 wins at Devil's Bowl Speedway this year, along with a win at Airborne Park Speedway and winning that Yandao Spring Championship Series between Airborne and Devil's Bowl. Also picking up 2 top 5 finishes on the dirt with 7.3% of the vote. Joey Polowarsik Jr., last year's Driver of the Year, his 5 American Canadian Tour wins, as well as Wayne Hellewell Jr. also collecting votes, the ACT Late Model Tour champion, and 4 wins this year, as well as a very impressive run for both of them at the Oxford 250.
Certainly. I think that maybe people overlook with Hellewell is his run at the 250, because his finish, if you just look at the results, really maybe didn't show that he had. But if you were there and you watched the early portion of that race, there was no doubt at all that Wayne Hellewell Jr. had one of the fastest cars there. And to be honest, it's weird to say this, but it was kind of a shock, because they had, up until that race, and I think Wayne and Bruce Bernhardt and their crew would probably be the first ones to admit it, they had struggled with that super late model car. There's no doubt about it. They had the ACT late model figured out, but they struggled mightily. They went to Beach Ridge for a Pro All-Stars Series race. They failed to qualify, and they just kept it in working. They went and they tested at Oxford a week before the 50. Any track racer should do, or any short track racing team should do when they're struggling, and that's work hard, and that's what Wayne Hellewell did, and it's unfortunate that the finish didn't get to show for it, but the paycheck certainly did.
So Nick Sweet, the 2015 VMM Driver of the Year, joining a very astounding list of former Driver of the Year winners. And I think this now concludes the 2015 racing season. Brandon, where are you off to first for 2016?
It's possible that I may make a visit out to Oklahoma for the Chili Bowl. If not, then we have Speed Weeks coming up down at New Smyrna Speedway in Florida there in February at some point. We'll also be, I'm not sure if you'll make an appearance or not, TJ, but we'll be at the Northeast Motorsports Expo up in Augusta, Maine. I think that's January 8th through 10th. And also, you've wrapped up your awards. We at Speed51.com, we still have some awards to hand out, which I think we're going to be doing in February, around the time of the Oscars. So definitely head on over, and now that you voted at Vermont Motorsports Magazine, you can go over there. Obviously, we're a national site, so we have drivers from North Carolina, California, everywhere, but certainly the Northeast is well represented, not only with drivers, but racetracks. I know Thunder Road has been nominated as one of the possible racetracks of the year, as well as some different categories. Like this year, we introduced a Best Finish Award, and the Milk Bowl is up for nomination. There's 10 different videos. All the videos are right on the awards, and the 2015 Milk Bowl has been nominated. So if you're a fan of Thunder Road, definitely head on over to speed51.com and vote for the annual 51 awards.
I know Devil's Bowl Speedway has some photos up for some photography awards as well, along with Best Food, which I don't know, it was close. It was a close vote for me. That poutine at Chaudière really hit the spot this year.
Yeah, that's a category too. The best food, you have the white knuckle nuggets at Beach Ridge. The French fries at Thunder Road were nominated this season. And we went to Facebook and received some of those nominations. So definitely head on over. Derek O'Donnell actually is also nominated among, I think, 20 drivers are on the list. Derek O'Donnell is one of them, for the local track driver of the year. So definitely get over there and support the region if you're listening tonight, and vote for some of the drivers that you get to see weekly here in the Northeast.
Well, there you have it. Brandon, thanks for joining me tonight. We'll kick off our 2016 racing coverage soon. Hopefully have some announcements about some exciting things happening here on VtMotorMag.com shortly. But as for the 2015 VMM Driver of the Year Awards, Nick Sweet is your 2015 winner. Brandon, thanks for joining me tonight.
It's been a good time. Thanks, TJ.
Ladies and gentlemen, have a good night. Thanks for joining us. And celebrate Nick Sweet as the 2015 VMM Driver of the Year Award winner.